There we go. So good evening again to everyone. If you have not done so, please mute your phone. Anyone who does not mute their phone may be muted by the call moderator or removed from the call from Teams. Additionally, if you are not a member of the Baltimore Board of School Commissioners or the CEO and her staff, please turn your video off. I will now read a roll call of the board to identify who is present. Vice Chair Roberts.
Present.
Commissioner Coy.
Present.
Commissioner Iblagi.
Present.
Commissioner Esposito.
Present.
Commissioner Kenyatta Bay.
Present.
Commissioner Muhammad.
Present.
Commissioner Reed.
Present.
Commissioner Sally.
Present.
Commissioner Slater Harrington.
Present.
And I am present. We are all present this evening. Is there a motion to reopen the meeting?
So moved, Roberts.
Thank you, Vice Chair Roberts. Is there a second?
Second, Kenyatta Bay.
Thank you, Commissioner Kenyatta Bay. All in favor? Vice Chair Roberts.
Yes.
Commissioner Coy.
Yes.
Commissioner Iblagi.
Yes.
Commissioner Esposito.
Yes.
Commissioner Kenyatta Bay.
Yes.
Commissioner Muhammad.
Yes.
Commissioner Reed.
Yes.
Commissioner Sally.
Yes.
Commissioner Slater Harrington.
Yes.
And I am in favor. That motion passes unanimously. We will now have a presentation of colors by the Junior Reserve Officer Training Corps at Edmondson Westside High School. Please stand and join me. Thank you all. I just want to make sure for the record, and you all may be seated. I just want to make sure for the record that we specify, and I don't even know why I said, because I know exactly what school you're from. It's just on reading this. This is the Reach Partnership School. They're junior ROTC, and we have Cadet First Sergeant Hunter Satter. Not with us, okay. Cadet Command Sergeant Major Ebelin and Anzores, Cadet Second Lieutenant Forrest Spriggs, Cadet Sergeant First Class Anthony Zavala, Cadet Sergeant First Class Selena Martinez. Who else do we have? Cadet Corporal Crowder. Cadet Corporal Gonzalez. Can we give the JROTC from the Reach? Say that one, hold on, we have one more. Tompkin, Tapia, Cadet First Class Tapia. So let's give the Reach Partnership School and their teacher a round of applause. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Thank you. Is there, please join me as Commissioner Eblagi reads the names of those that we have lost, unfortunately.
I would like to take the time to recognize the passing of City Schools students. Each of these individuals were a part of our school's communities. They will be remembered fondly by the greater City Schools community. Tonight, we send our deepest condolences to their friends and families. Audrey Perez was enrolled in Baltimore City Public Schools in September 2022 and began receiving home teaching through the Home and Hospital program. She was able to start attending her home school, Highlandtown Elementary Middle, for several months in the beginning of November 2022 until she transferred to Tench Tillman Elementary Middle in January. Audrey began receiving home teaching services once again in April of 2023 and continued to receive instruction through the Office of Health and Specialized Student Services until her passing. Audrey received services through the English Language Learners Program of BCPS and was excited to continue to learn English. Audrey was a happy child who loved learning and working with her home mother. Her smile lit up the room. Audrey loved rainbow unicorns. Her mother describes her as incredible and called her that. Audrey was a ball of energy and full of personality. Through pictures, songs, and games, Audrey learned how to identify the letters of the alphabet and their sounds in English. She could also count, identify, and add and subtract numbers within 10. She also became pretty good at writing her full name, letters, and numbers. Throughout our time together, Audrey loved learning and never complained. She would be anxiously awaiting teacher's arrival every day, even up until the day before she transitioned. Her 6 young years on this earth have left an unforgettable impact on all those who knew her. She will be missed. Rashid Maxwell was a freshman at Carver Vocational Technical High School. Prior to that, he was a student at Katherine Johnson Academy. He was a student who was a light, and in his short time at Carver, he was becoming more connected. The Carver Bears will greatly miss him. Thank you, and I ask everyone to pause for a moment of silence. And now I pass it back to Chair McFadden.
Thank you, Commissioner Eblagi. That is always one of the toughest moments of our meetings. So thank you for that. Is there a motion to approve the prior open session minutes?
So moved, Robert.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Is there a second?
Second, Kenyatta Bay.
Thank you, Commissioner Kenyatta Bay. All in favor, Vice Chair Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Coy,
Yes.
Commissioner Eblagi,
Yes.
Commissioner Esposito,
Yes.
Commissioner Kenyatta Bay,
Yes.
Commissioner Muhammad,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Sally,
Yes.
Commissioner Slater Harrington.
Yes.
I'm also in favor. That motion passes unanimously. Is there a motion to approve the closed session summaries?
So moved, Robert.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Is there a second?
Second, Sally.
Thank you, Commissioner Sally. All in favor, Vice Chair Roberts, Commissioner Coy,
Yes.
Commissioner Eblagi,
Yes.
Commissioner Esposito,
Yes.
Commissioner Kenyatta Bay,
Yes.
Commissioner Muhammad,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Sally,
Yes.
Commissioner Slater Harrington.
Yes.
I'm also in favor. That motion passes unanimously. So again, welcome to everyone here and to the folks that are joining us virtually. Last week, the board hosted a family and community board forum at Cherry Hill Elementary Middle School. Several members of our staff who were in this room attended, but also there were various members of our community that were present at this particular board forum. Commissioner Muhammad and I were thrilled to share our insights and engage in a meaningful dialogue about the future of city schools. Commissioner Muhammad, I'm putting you on the spot a bit, but but are you able to illuminate any of Wednesday and your thoughts or perspective as it relates to our board forum?
Thank you for the opportunity. What I would like to highlight, and definitely I think that the board is grateful that we have a community that recognizes that we are in partnership with one another and that partnership leads to success. At this forum, we were thankful to have individuals from the community. We were thankful to have individuals from our school communities that came out. And we were thankful to have individuals from the district. What was, I think, most appreciated for me was that we had our business community, our city government, all in conversation of how we can best serve our young people. So forums like this allow us as a board to communicate directly with those who we serve, and it allows those who we serve, being the community and the scholars, to communicate openly in a different form directly with us. So again, thank you for the opportunity of sharing this, and thank you to Cherry Hill and our students from around the city who attended for your support and helping us to serve you better.
Thank you, Commissioner Muhammad. And yes, absolutely. Thank you to Principal Guzman, who opened up his doors to all of city schools to be able to engage in that forum. There's a photo that I'm going to share from a beautiful mural that's in that school that Miss Sabrina Sutton and I saw as we were leaving out of the building near the auditorium, the multi-purpose room. It's a beautiful image of just prolific history makers in our country that happen to all be people of color. And it was nice to be able to see that that is what our young people see themselves reflected in that space in one way. And then we saw a lot of their doors that were kind of named after prolific and prominent history makers. So kudos to Principal Guzman, the work that he's doing at that particular school. And thank you again for hosting us. I want to remind members of the public, everyone that is joining us, whether in person or virtually, that attending the board forums, that's not the only way to engage with the board. Folks can attend or watch live recordings of public meetings if you're unable to attend. In addition to committee meetings, all of these meetings are public meetings. You can sign up for public comment at board meetings, these meetings, or the committee meetings, which allows you to speak to the board directly about agenda items that are of concern to you. You can also contact the board office at schoolboard@bcps.k12.md.us or by calling 443-984-2000. Please do not hesitate to contact us for information or support. October is National Principals Month, as we mentioned in our last meeting, and we've been celebrating throughout the month of October because it is a monumental occasion. It's a time that we celebrate and honor the incredible leaders who play an indispensable role in the education of our children. Across the district, we are expressing our heartfelt gratitude for principals, and the district has been sharing spotlight announcements about principals and newsletters and creating special review videos, social media posts, hosting surprise celebrations, and giving gifts. Before October ends, we want to share the board's appreciation for our principals. It's not easy managing the day-to-day operations of an entire school community while doing your best to provide a safe and nurturing space for our children to learn. Yet our principals show up dedicated, passionate, and committed to their role every single day. From the bottom of our hearts, thank you for making a profound impact on the lives of students throughout Baltimore City. If the board can just join me in giving our principals a round of applause in the last few days that we are formally celebrating our principals. October also signifies the end of the first marking period. As we prepare to close the first quarter, it's important to take a moment to reflect on the milestones achieved, the challenges overcome, and the growth experienced. Together, we have demonstrated our ability to adapt, to learn, and thrive in the face of change and uncertainty. As we move forward into the next marking period, let's carry that momentum of our accomplishments with us. Students, if you are in need of academic support, you should work with your teachers or your school counselors. Families who may be experiencing hardships that impede their student success or need general information should reach out to your school community coordinators, your community school coordinators. As I tell my students, that you should have no grades lower than a C. That's my expectation. Now, there are some, situations that need additional support, but young people, we're encouraging you to reach out to your school communities, your teachers, your staff members, your principals, so that we can make sure that you are certainly on track for success. Let's work together to build on what we've learned, to set new goals, and to keep pushing ourselves, all of us, to reach even greater heights. Finally, I want to bring to everyone's attention the 2023-24 Associated Student Congress of Baltimore City and the Student Commissioner elections. Earlier this month, City Schools uploaded videos of candidates for student commissioner and the various ASCBC, or the Associated Student Congress of Baltimore City, the officer positions on our City Schools TV YouTube page, allowing voters to see their faces and learn the intent about each candidate. I'm encouraging, if you have not already done so, spend some time, commissioners going through, all community members going through, to see what our students are saying, and who actually is in the running to lead our student body all across the city, almost 80,000 young people. It was actually nice to go through to see what our young people are saying at various schools throughout our district. Next week, from October 30th to November 7th, students in grades 6 through 12 can vote for these candidates during the ASCBC and student commissioner elections. The Associated Student Congress of Baltimore City is known as ASCBC affectionately, and our student commissioner, they represent Baltimore's youth, our children, in district level decision making. They listen to the needs of their fellow students around the city, and they elevate their concerns to the school board and to the CEO staff. In fact, our student commissioner can vote on almost all matters, presented to the board. On October 30th, students will receive an email with a unique link to vote. Students who cannot access their email can log in to eballot.app/BCPS using their student ID and birth date as credentials. The board encourages students to get involved and to vote. Voting empowers you to have a say in the decisions that affect your educational experience and ensures that your interests are well represented. To learn more about the City Schools ASCBC election, please visit the City Schools website. Tonight, we'll have members of ASCBC present to speak about that voting process later. Thank you all. The board acknowledges a monetary donation of $5,000 from Intel, Dell, and Best Buy to the Academy for College and Career Exploration for Generation Esports curriculum and Norton software. The board acknowledges a non-monetary donation valued at $14,000 from Intel, Dell, and Best Buy to the Academy of College and Career Exploration for gaming laptops and Dell monitors. The board acknowledges a monetary donation of $7,500 from the Fund for Educational Excellence to Hazelwood Elementary Middle School for a kitchen island, garden, and gardening tools in order to start a farm-to-table program. That's very nice. Is there a motion to approve the personnel and employment and payroll matters?
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Slater Harrington. Is there a second?
Second, Kenyatta Bay.
Thank you, Commissioner Kenyatta Bay. All in favor, Vice Chair Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Coy,
Yes.
Commissioner Esposito,
Yes.
Commissioner Kenyatta Bay,
Yes.
Commissioner Muhammad,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Sally,
Yes.
Commissioner Slater Harrington,
Yes.
And I am in favor. That motion passes unanimously. I will now turn it over to Dr. Santelises for her CEO comments.
Thank you very much, Chair McFadden. Good evening, everyone. It is my pleasure to invite forward for this evening's PEP agenda, Chief Emily Nielsen.
Thank you, Dr. Santelises. Good evening, Board Commissioners. For our PEP agenda tonight, if you are here in person in the boardroom, or if you are online, if you could stand up or turn on your camera so we can acknowledge you after I read your name. On our PEP agenda for tonight, an appointment from the Office of the Chief Academic Officer recommended that Natalie Peoples, currently Assistant Principal with Escambia County School District, be appointed Coordinator 21st Century Learning effective October 25th, 2023. An appointment from the Office of the Chief Human Capital Officer recommended that Carolyn Rosone Fernandez, currently Coordinator Specialized Instruction, be appointed Educational Specialist 2 Instructional Leadership effective October 25th, 2023. From the Office of the Chief of Schools, appointments recommended that Dana Yates, currently Educational Specialist 2 Safety Conferencing Suspension Services, be appointed Manager School Operations Support effective October 30th, 2023. Recommended that Gregory Williams, currently Secondary Foreign Language Teacher, Baltimore County Public Schools, be appointed Assistant Principal, Baltimore International Academy West effective November 6th, 2023. Recommended that Chantel Douglas, currently principal at Woodhome Elementary Middle, be appointed Manager School Operations effective November 6, 2023. An interim appointment recommended that Monique Harding, currently Assistant Principal at Tench Tillman Elementary Middle, be appointed Interim Principal at Woodhome Elementary Middle effective November 6, 2023 through June 30th, 2024. And on our CEO notification, an appointment from the Office of the Chief Financial Officer, Erzo Raufian, currently Manager Communications, be appointed Special Assistant to the CFO effective October 25th, 2023. Congratulations to everyone on tonight's PEP agenda.
Thank you so much, Chief Nielsen. Congratulations to everyone who was appointed this evening, as has become our practice. I do want to highlight our one principal candidate or appointment this evening. Monique R. Harding has served city schools for 23 years. After 8 years of teaching, she was appointed assistant principal at Tench Tillman Elementary Middle School. I see we have a contingent here this evening, where she collaborated with her principal, now ILED, Jael Samuel, to transform the school from restructuring status to a 4-star rating as measured by MSDE's state report card, while maintaining one of the highest attendance rates in the district. Ms. Harding earned a Bachelor of Arts in English from Towson University and a Master's in Educational Leadership from the College of Notre Dame in Maryland. She believes, as Les Brown does, that no one rises to low expectations. Congratulations, Principal Harding. I would like to continue this evening by proudly announcing that Josh Sivan, our Chief Legal Officer, has been appointed by Governor Wes Moore to serve on the statewide appellate court's Judicial Nominating Commission. Yes, which reviews and recommends individuals to serve as state appellate judges in Maryland. Chief Sivan's appointment to this distinguished commission is a recognition of his extensive legal experience and expertise, which of course is something that we here at City Schools have long been aware. Earlier this afternoon, Chief Sivan joined Maryland Attorney General Anthony Brown at a press conference announcing that the state of Maryland is joining city schools and other districts across the state in our lawsuit to hold social media companies accountable for their role in the harm that excessive social media use is causing our young people. This lawsuit is just one example of the numerous ways that Chief Sivan's leadership, dedication, and excellent work supports the well-being of our students and their families in Baltimore City. Congratulations, Chief Sivan, along with our thanks for your dedicated efforts on behalf of the district and the young people we serve. What'd you say? That's right. Oh, no, it better be, or I wouldn't have been smiling. That's a good thing. Congratulations, Josh. At this time, I am very proud to announce for the 14th year in a row, Baltimore City Schools has received an unmodified opinion or clean audit, which is the highest level of opinion available of our fiscal year 2023 financial statements. I am pleased to welcome Aries Coleman and Bill Early from our external audit team at Clifton Larson Allen to briefly explain what it means in terms of our effectiveness in meeting our financial reporting obligations.
Hi, good evening, everyone, and thank you so much, and congratulations to all those who received awards and promotions and to the next level, and definitely to the school attorney. We worked with him at another school district prior to the system, and he's wonderful to work with. So congratulations to him. So everyone, thank you so much for that warm welcome, Dr. Santelises. My name is Aries Coleman, and I'm a director with Clifton Larson Allen, CLA for short. And I am here to present the financial results for the fiscal year 23 financial statement audit for Baltimore City Schools, or the system. I have with me basically the team that is basically responsible for the audit and getting it done and issued. Bill Early, who is the principal. You've met him. Bill has presented many years along with me. And then we have a new person. We have Lauren Bradford. And Lauren Bradford is now the new manager. She was promoted. She's worked on the audit many years. And she's promoted to manager and is taking more of the day-to-day charge over the audit. So we'll go ahead and get through our presentation. Next slide, please. All right, as we go through this process, there's some acronyms, and please forgive me in advance. Auditors love acronyms, and some of you have heard me over the years and probably have caught on to what they are. But I'll step back for a minute and kind of give you an idea of what we're doing. So when we are performing an audit, we have certain standards that we are required to meet as part of that audit process. And one of the standards is General Accepted Auditing Standards, and we call them GAS. And what that is, it sets the process and procedures which we must meet as part of the audit process. So when you're getting an audit, our opinion in the financial statements, which is 2 to 3 pages, what we're doing, we're attaining reasonable assurance, not absolute. Maybe we're not saying it's 100% foolproof, but reasonable assurance that the financial statements are free of material misstatements. We do assess the accounting principles that are used and estimates that are used as part of management's process of compiling the financial statements. And then we evaluate the overall presentation of the financial statements. Next slide, please. All right, so the audit services we perform. Today we're talking about the financial audit as of June 30th, 2023, which was done in accordance with government audit standards. And then we do look at some supplemental information that is in the back of the financial statements. And what we're required to do is make sure that information, again, is reasonably related to the information that was audited and is presented in our auditor's opinion. The next part of the audit process is looking at the federal expenditures, which we call the single audit. The single audit is due to the state of Maryland by the end of this year, 12/31. And we basically take a look at the federal programs that are administered by the city schools. And we look at that as well in accordance with the federal single audit compliance, which is under the Office of Management and Budget. Next slide, please. Okay, so a couple of reports are going to be issued throughout this whole audit process. We're talking about one tonight, but by the time we're done and issued everything, there are several reports, so I'll touch on those. So as Dr. Santelises proudly had mentioned, the independent auditor's report, which is 3 pages of the financial statements that you guys have reviewed. That's where Lauren is working with our team. We're working with the finance office, with Shree, with Chris, with Lola. We're working with the financial office, and we're looking at the information and we're applying some limits, some procedures over that information. And at the end of the day, Bill Early basically looks at the information and he issues the independent auditor's report. And this year it is unmodified, which means that we are stating that with reasonable assurance that the financial statements are not materially misstated. We also issue a report on internal controls and compliance over financial audit. We also look at the reporting and compliance with other matters, which is going to be your yellow book or your single audit report. And then there are some required communications with governments that we will make as part of this presentation to you tonight. Next slide, please. All right, so with the audit approach, Bill may jump in here. I'm gonna give it my best shot, but he's definitely expert. What we do, there are risks associated with the audit. Remember, we talked about that we're not saying that every transaction is reviewed. We're not giving 100% assurance that the audit does not contain any misstatements. We're saying it's reasonable that there are no material misstatements. And as part of our audit process, it's risk-based. Because we are not looking at every transaction, we have to look at industry standards. We talk to various levels of government, management. We look at what's going on with other similar industries like the school system. And then we determine what the high risk areas would be for a entity such as city schools. And when we look at that, we talk about management override of internal controls. With a system as big as city schools, you always have a concern that someone will not follow procedures and that they override controls and circumvent the processes that have been put in place. Another significant risk for an entity such as city schools is going to be improper revenue recognition. As monies are coming in, there's always the urge to make the bottom line look better, as we will say. And so you may, there's always the tendency or the risk of recognizing revenue prior to it is earned and properly recorded by the entity. And last was implementation of a new GASB that we'll talk about in a minute. But anytime there are new accounting standards, and GASB is the government accounting standards board for the school system and excuse me, for the school system, and they did issue a new standard. And so implementation of a new standard again raised the level of risk because you're used to doing something, the system is used to doing something one way, and then now kind of shaking up how they're doing it. And that is going to have some changes on how the financial information is being presented. So when you're doing that, the combination of all those things together, there's always a risk that you can have some material misstatements. And then when we look at those items that we say are high risk for a entity such as city schools, we take a higher look or a more in-depth look at the revenue and receivables that were received by the school system. Again, with that new GASB accounting standard pronouncement, which we call SBITA, I'll talk about in a minute. And then the management override really looks at the journal entry process, again, in making sure that these procedures are being done consistently as prescribed by the school system. Next slide, please. All right, so just results of procedures, and I will reiterate what was already said. Unmodified opinion, the highest level of assurance that we are allowed to issue for financial statements, which means that there were no material misstatements. The audit was dated September 29th, 2023. It is due to the state of Maryland by September 30th by 11:59 p.m. So we met that deadline. Emphasis of matter paragraph. As I mentioned, there was a change in accounting principles, which was GASB 96, and that's subscription-based information technology arrangements. And what that does is basically a different way of accounting for subscriptions, such as information being hosted by the cloud, any other subscription-based licenses for software, just taking a different look at that and actually presenting them differently in the financial statements. Next slide, please. So the next piece what the Lauren's team is working on is the single audit, which is the audit of the federal programs. As mentioned before, that is due to the state of Maryland Department of Education by December 31st. The city schools is regarded as a low-risk auditee in accordance with single audit standards. The programs that we are looking and testing this year will be your Title I, it will be your educational stabilization funds, your ESSER funds, of course, the coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds, which SLRF or ARPA funds, the disaster grants, public assistance, FEMA, which they give to publicly declared emergency situations, and then student support and academic enrichment programs. Next slide, please. Okay. So the last part before I wrap up, there's required communications that I must make to the commissioners. We did issue separate communications to the commissioners with some best practices. That information is strictly given to those to governance for them to review, and then as part of their process, they will work with management on those recommendations. For significant accounting policies, when you look at the financial statements, there's note 1. With note 1, basically it gives you all of the adopted accounting principles for the school system. Also, we'll talk about the new accounting standards. If everyone has any time to read that, that's listed there as note 1 as well. And it talks about how the financials have changed in relation to this new accounting standards. Next slide. When you look at the financial statements, there are some estimate numbers, meaning that there are certain factors that are looked at, and those factors are assessed, and then from that, management will estimate what that value is and put that number on the financial statements. Sometimes third parties are brought in to do this estimate, and management will evaluate the third party's information and then what inputs they put into that information to get the financial statement numbers. As auditors, we are to understand management's assessment and then review the information and the inputs that were used to develop the estimate and determine if it was reasonable and materially correct to be presented in the financial statements. The financial statements do not contain any sensitive financial disclosures. There were no unusual transactions. We did not have any difficulties with management or with completing or performing our audit task. Next slide. Okay, so as part of this, our process, As I mentioned, we're looking at information as prepared by management, and as that we do recommend entries or adjustments to management. And I call the actual language is misstatements, and that is part of the language that is in the standards. But they are, as we go through and we are testing account balances, we will propose to management based on the results of our testing changes that should be completed to their financial statements. So the uncorrected misstatements mean there were items that we noted and we presented to management, and as part of that process, management felt that they were not, they did not need to be adjusted. They did not materially alter the financial information that was presented by management, and that the reader would not come to a different conclusion if these changes were not made. And we did agree with management's assessment of that. But a corrected misstatement kind of was the other way. Management reviewed our assessment and our as to why we came to that conclusion, and they agreed to make these adjustments that are listed here to the capital project fund in order to make sure that the information presented in the financial statement was materially correct. We did not have any disagreement with management as part of the audit. Management did not consult with any outside accountants as part of their audit process with us. Next slide. I think I'm almost done. He think he's falling asleep on me. No one. But the last one is I mentioned before about accounting standards. You guys have to go through one more. So next year we'll be talking about a new accounting standard, and that's going to be compensating absence. And that's your leave. That's basically being that the employees are being paid for the leave that they accrue through the school system. The financial oversight persons are changing how that information is presented in the financial statements. And again, that will cause some change, may or may not be material, but that will cause some changes on how financial information is presented next year. All right.
Eris, real quick, just to correct you, that will be the year after.
The year.
Because of it goes in effect December 15th. So it'll be for July 24 through 6/30/25.
Yeah. Okay. So next year I will not talk about this. We'll talk about something else in the meantime, but but you know it's coming down the pipe. So thank you for that very much. Next slide, please. Okay. So thank you so much for giving us some of your time tonight, and we will open it up for any questions.
Great. As we open it up, I just want to thank you again, and thank you for a very efficient overview of the work and of the audit results. And thank you for partnering with us. Are there any questions? Yes, please.
More of a comment than a question, just noting for the record that a June 30th to October 24th timeframe for the audit and all the work is impressive, is a lot of work, both on the auditor side, but thinking about the school staff and the team and the record that you highlighted earlier, 14 years now of clean audits is something to highlight and lift up. But having an organization that I work with and for that goes through an audit process that's much smaller, I know a little bit about what goes into exactly this, and just want to hat tip to the team for what this means.
No, I think that's a point well taken. I had it as my last point, but I'm glad that you made it now, Commissioner Coy. I do want to just give a big shout out and thank you to Chief Doherty, Deputy Chief Cox, and just the entire team, because it is a lot of work. As a matter of fact, I think we've gotten used to not seeing Mary Ann for weeks. Well, no. What I was going to say is we don't see her for weeks and months on end, because she is in the throes of audit, and people know to kind of let her go and focus. But I think you're right in pointing out that it really is a lot of work. So thank you. Commissioner Reed, were you going to say something? As being head of the audit committee? It's clean. Thank you. Great. Any other comments? Great. So we want to thank you all again for coming. this
you.
evening and sharing the results of the audit publicly, so that not only our board, but also the public knows where we are with our fiscal management with regards to the audit. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good one. Have a good one. Thank you.
Thank you.
You too. So next, in alignment with the Kirwan Commission's Blueprint for Maryland's Future, the district has been working for many months to improve career pathways for our teachers. As described in yesterday's article in the Baltimore Banner, our goal is the development of a teacher career ladder that treats teachers as professionals by creating opportunities and pathways for them to increase their skills, leadership, and compensation. The key components of effective teacher career pathways are threefold. 1, provide more pathways to leadership. 2, design faster interval progression leading to salary increases. And 3rd, make an increased investment in overall teacher compensation, even more than that required by the Blueprint legislation. Another significant component is the provision of real-time teacher compensation for additional work in the form of stipends rather than the previous practice of accumulating achievement units over time. We have reached a critical moment with our partners at the Baltimore Teachers Union in the development of teacher career pathways. We believe that the district and the BTU are starting from the same thought, and that is a recognition that our current teacher career ladder needs to be updated. We want to use this moment to better meet the current needs of our educators while supporting student achievement, aligned to the Kirwan legislation and supported by research on effective teacher career ladders. And finally, I want to recognize the top schools with the highest percentage attendance in September. And that's right. It is essential that every student arrives at school on time and ready to learn every day, right? So sometimes I run into folks who say, well, you know, I was only out of school one day this week. Well, one day, 1 week, very soon yields you being in the chronic absentee category. So yes, it is about getting to school, but it is about getting to school every single day. And this is a priority because really continuing to reduce chronic absenteeism has to be a priority for us because it really does represent one of our greatest obstacles that we've been experiencing, particularly in this time post our 2-year virtual learning in COVID. So with that context, I think it is more than appropriate to recognize these schools who really have done an outstanding job in the month of September with regards to student attendance. First, we have City Neighbors Hamilton with nearly 98% attendance. Congratulations, Principal Jabari Bush and your team. Next, we want to recognize Hampstead Hill Academy with more than 97% attendance. And so congratulations to Principal Matt Hornbeck and the Hampstead Hill Academy community. And the following schools, will also note, all achieved more than 96% attendance for the entire month. First, Baltimore School for the Arts and the team with Principal Rosalind Coffin. Second, Tunbridge Public Charter under the leadership of Principal Aisha Wicks. And then next, Hamilton Elementary Middle School under the leadership of Principal Natasha Pouncey. Next, City Neighbors Charter High School under the leadership of Principal Bridget Cotman. We also have Francis Scott Key Elementary School Elementary Middle under the leadership of Principal Tanera Pitts, and the Crossroads School under the leadership of Principal Denise Valarin. Finally, I want to recognize the P-TECH program at Dunbar High School for achieving more than 96% attendance in September. Let's give them all a hand. Nicely done. And I also want to thank Executive Director Sonia Goodwin, Director Lori Hines, and Coordinator Tanya Williams for their hard work on this critically important project. And a special thanks again to our school communities, our families, for supporting their students to ensure that they were in school and ready to learn again every single day. Congratulations. And Chair McFadden, that concludes my remarks for this evening. I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you very much for all of that thoughtful information and those updates. I will now review the consent agenda. Board colleagues, please let me know if you would like an item removed or if you have questions for staff. Item 9.01, gifts and donations. Item 9.02, gifts and donations. Item 9.03, gifts and donations. Item 9.04, policy GBN, appointment, assignment, transfer, probation, election to tenure, resignations, and retirement, tier 2, which is second reader. Commissioner Eblagi.
So can I pull that for a question and of vote? Is that?
You can pull it for a vote, but if you have a question, state your question, and then we can vote on it after the question is discussed.
All right, thank you. Yeah, so my question was just surrounding what I understand to be submitted proposals to the revision of policy GBN from the BTU surrounding the negotiation of their contract and section 3.82.
You have a question about the requests that were submitted?
Yeah, I suppose just whether or not the changes that we are implementing have been, influenced by the input that they have provided and how that has impacted these revisions.
So how the teachers union was engaged in the revisions from first reader to second reader?
Yeah, I suppose so.
Okay, so hopefully we have someone on staff ready to discuss that after public comment. Any additional questions, Commissioner Eblagi, or any commissioners around that item? Thank you. 9.05, policy FKA, use of board school facilities, waiver request, Forest Park Alumni Association. 12.01, therapeutic and non-therapeutic aid services. 15.01, rough roofing and sheet metal Inc., roof replacement at Hamilton Elementary Middle School number 236. 15.01, Janus Contractors Inc., restroom upgrades at Sinclair Lane Elementary School. Janus Contractors Inc., restroom upgrades at Barkley Elementary Middle School. Janus Contractors Inc., restroom upgrades at Lakewood Early Learning Center. 15.05, Tito Contractors Inc., Colossal Contractors Inc., and Janus Contractors Inc., door and frame repair and installation. 15.09, janitorial services. 15.06, thank you, Commissioner Coy. 15.07, Education Logistics Incorporated. 15.07, 15.08, Enterprise Holdings, Inc. 15.09, which one?
15.09.
15.09, school bus and passenger van transportation, Commissioner Coy.
And I'm not interested in pulling for a vote, just want to lift up how great the city schools team has been doing on transportation. This came up through the operations committee and just want to celebrate that. Other districts in the state and elsewhere in the country have not had a good start to the school year, and just like hat tip, kudos, and all the things the city school staff, and knowing how important the buses have been in that, and the vans, as well as the
There is someone, Mark.
Mr. Laveau,
Laveau.
yeah, if you could mute, thanks.
as well as just celebrating and I know this happened last year, but as it's rolling out, the electric buses that City Schools is leading the country in implementing. So anyway, just a celebration, taking that opportunity to say so.
Thank you for that, Commissioner Coy.
So you're not pulling it. Thank you, Commissioner Coy. So yes, it is certainly appreciated from staff. So thank you for raising that. So the item that we are pulling per Commissioner Eblagi is item 9.04, policy GBN. We will now move into public comment. Speakers from recognized groups will have the opportunity to speak for 5 minutes. First, we have Jocelyn Providence representing the Baltimore Teachers Union. Is this a video we're waiting for, or is Miss Providence, or is Jocelyn Providence live?
No, it is a video, Chair. I'm getting it up.
No worries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Jocelyn Providence, and I will be giving comment on behalf of the Baltimore Teachers Union. I am a high school math teacher in Baltimore City, and these last 2 weeks have been exhausting. One quick note, please consult your tenured math teachers on a new curriculum. It's time. We deserve to have an active role in this process. We know what's best for our students. Many of us have already begun to create our own curriculums, value our expertise, and listen to us. Now, as teachers, we have quarter one grades due basically tomorrow. So we are trying to push our students to have a strong finish to quarter one through remastery, making up missed work, even if it means more work and grading for us to do on our unpaid hours of work. Not to mention the exciting but time-consuming letters of recommendations that we must do this time of year. We constantly try to fill in the gaps, go above and beyond, and yet you all, the school board and district leadership, do not see the need to value us beyond a thank you and we appreciate you. Your practices, policies, and budget allocation show this. On September 5th, y'all voted to approve an over $6 million budget for between 45 to 55 virtual subs contracted out from Fuel Ed LLC. Let's say you have 55 virtual instructors. That means y'all are willing to pay each of these virtual subs $110,529.55 per virtual substitute. Yes, I did a math. I'm a math teacher. I love math. That is nearly $8,000 more than the current salary of the highest paid instructional teacher on model. Why do you value these one-year virtual subs more than you value your most tenured model teachers? That's disrespectful, to be frank, especially when the school board is unwilling to improve our current teacher salaries to be more aligned with teacher salaries across the state of Maryland. And that amount that y'all approved doesn't even show the true cost, because you're also paying for a full-time staff member to also be in that classroom with the students to supervise instruction. Yes, there is a teacher staffing crisis. We know this, where there are more thoughtful and cost-effective solutions that would achieve long-term improvements that could be implemented rather than misusing millions of dollars this year alone on basically 50 virtual subs. A few of those could be: one, fee support for praxis for PSRPs who want to become teachers or conditionally licensed educators. Two, funding programs and pipelines to ensure we can recruit PSRPs and current non-instructional staff to be teachers. And three, funding grants and waivers to pay for education for employees, recently graduated seniors, or graduating seniors to become licensed educators, since the unlivable wages paid to most non-instructional staff are prohibitive to entering costly licensure programs to become teachers. The BTU continues to try to work with district leadership to come up with innovative and collaborative ways to address issues within our school system with a systematic approach. But this cannot happen with the district continuing to undervalue us, the teachers and PSRPs working in schools with students and families directly. During our BTU negotiations, y'all continue to offer compensation proposals that don't align with other school districts in Maryland and give very little money to experienced educators compared to our peers in the state. However, y'all are willing to pay these virtual subs basically more than the highest instructional teacher? Make it make sense. If y'all have children or family in Baltimore City, y'all might have heard of coach classes. It is time, after our paid hours, where teachers are strongly encouraged to work without compensation. Y'all aren't even willing to pay us when we want to give up our own time to help children after school in person. But y'all are willing to pay that absurd amount of virtual subs for 1 year who have no connection to our schools and our community. Make it make sense. And for families like my own, who have 2 teachers in their household, you continue to maintain the ridiculous and disrespectful practice of forcing parents to split their paternity leave instead of guaranteeing that they will both be able to use their full FMLA time together in one of the most meaningful experiences people can have, welcoming a new addition to their family. Commissioner Coy, what would you do if you were denied your FMLA to spend your federally allotted time with your child? Commissioner Harrington, how would you feel if your partner was not allowed to spend their federally allotted time with your child? Commissioner Esposito, you know how precious that time together is with a newborn. Why does this FMLA policy still exist? Commissioner Sally, Commissioner Roberts, why do y'all continue to force these inhumane policies on us? Why aren't we valued? Why aren't our families valued when we give so much? It's simply unacceptable.
Thank you, Baltimore Teachers Union, for that comment. Next, we will have Carl Perry, the president of the Public School Administrators and Supervisor Association, PSASA. Good evening, Mr. Perry.
Good evening, Chair McFadden. Good evening, Vice Chair Roberts, honorable board members, and Dr. Santelises. It's great to be here with you this evening. I hope that you all are doing well and working to pace yourselves, as this is a very long school year. One thing about appropriate pacing, it allows one to accomplish greater tasks, especially when not overburdened with a multitude of duties. During the opening quarter of the school year is when schools and teachers need the most support. You establish the positive culture and norms of your learning environment. You set learning expectations, work habits, and outline the academic plan for the year. We are finding that our school leaders are suffocating with the creation of countless plans. Local plans, CLN plans, and even state plans for some. All when they should be at the forefront of leading the learning taking place in their schools. I've asked in the past, can we consolidate or even eliminate some of these plans so our school leaders have more time for the children and the staff? This is National Principals Month. Let's celebrate our principals even further. If some things don't change, then our principals may need their own set of early mental health release days, because even when having CLN meetings, the stress level is very high. We don't want a mass exodus or burnout in the near future. Keeping that in mind, we need to do more for our amazing, hardworking, dedicated assistant principals. We need to incentivize all that they do and show them more respect. Respect is a very important thing. I've heard that when some ILEDs visit, they seemingly do not engage with the assistant principals and have even heard that some won't acknowledge them. That's a problem because they are board-appointed leaders as well. There is also no way that any teacher should make more than an assistant principal. But we can revisit that later during other conversations. More training and skill building needs to take place. Create more of a principal pipeline because the allure of the principal position is no longer enticing to many assistant principals, and people do not want to live their lives consumed by work. And remember, some teachers have a lot less responsibility and make more money, which is very disappointing. Over this past week, we held the Pizzazza Annual Fall Conference. A great deal of enriching learning opportunities for our members took place. We even had the opportunity to partner with Human Capital for a session on fostering relationships, communication, and collaboration with your team. Ironically, though, the session on retirement had the most attendees. Following that, I drove to New York City for the Council of School Supervisors and Administrators Local Number 1 annual conference. There, Mayor Eric Adams, Senator Chuck Schumer, and the Chancellor of Schools addressed more than 1,000 school leaders in attendance. They all lauded the work of administrators through the pandemic and even today. Their claim was that no one did more than they did with the reopening of schools, but we know here in city schools, that's incorrect because we did. Our leaders did. The mayor had some choice words for anyone who does not respect administrators because he knows firsthand what they do. I recorded his words as inspiration, but won't share them at this time. I did, however, take offense to some of his comments. He almost lost my attention when he said that New York had the greatest principals in the nation. I know here in Baltimore City, we have the greatest principals in the country. No one can do as much with as little that we do in the midst of all the obstacles that we're against. No one. I have one thing to ask of each of you. Believe what I believe. Our principals and administrators are the best in this country. Against all odds, we show up every day and implement the district's plan. We are driving the bus using the GPS of the district to lead our children to better, more successful lives. Believe that we are number one. I do. Thank you for your time. Have a good night, and please be safe.
Thank you, Mr. Perry, and thank you to the work that you're doing and the work of your members. Thank you, and thank you for showing up with us.
You're welcome, sir.
We're going to now have Yasmin Blanchard, who is the president of the Associated Student Congress for Baltimore City, ASCBC. Hello,
Good
Yasmin.
evening. Oh, sorry. Good evening, everyone.
You're good. You're good.
My name is Yasmin Blanchard. I'm a senior at Baltimore Polytechnic Institute. I'm also, of course, the acting president of the Associated Student Congress of Baltimore City, who I am speaking on behalf of today. Today, I will be speaking about ASCBC's election season, including our candidate town hall and the Maryland Association of Student Council, or MASS, workshop. On October 14th, ASCBC and Digital Harbor's SJA hosted the Facilitator Certification Workshop for the Maryland Association of Student Councils, which brought together student leaders from around the state of Maryland. Those who attended this workshop became certified to become presenters for any future MASS workshop. Thank you to the students who came out from Emergent Daily Vocational Technical High School, Patterson High School, Digital Harbor High School, and Baltimore Polytechnic Institute to become certified. We were pleased to see members of the ASCBC building relationships with student leaders from around the state, and we look forward to seeing their student-led workshops during the MASS Fall Leadership Conference on November 18th. As for the ASCBC and Student Commissioner election, we are currently within the campaign window, which runs from October 9th to the 29th. Election week is from October 30th to November 2nd, and results will be announced on the 6th. On October 18th, our virtual candidate town hall took place, where candidates were given time to introduce themselves before they dove into the Q&A portion and answered questions related to their goals and motivations for running. It was great to see students watching live and cheering on the candidates in the chat, but if you missed the town hall, you can still watch it on City Schools YouTube channel. Students can also learn about the candidates on ASCPC's website, which was mentioned before, which hosts a digital voter guide and candidate campaign videos in English and Spanish. The elections campaign has also pushed out toolkits for promoting the election to the SGAs and student leaders, including a civics lesson plan that teachers can use in a classroom to educate students about the candidates in the process of running. Starting next Monday, students will be able to vote via an email they receive to their city schools account or via a dedicated online portal accessible from the city schools website. The ASCPC Election Committee has worked tirelessly to ensure the fairness and accessibility of this election, and we look forward to students receiving their ballots. If you know a 6th to 12th grade student, please encourage them to learn about the candidates and vote next week. And if you are a student listening, be sure to cast your ballot next week. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Yasmin. I appreciate your leadership as well. Thank you. I'll now turn it over to Dr. Judkins for public comment.
Thank you. We have 3 public comments. They're all via video. The first is Diana Desierto.
Good evening. My name is Diana Desierto. I am a speech language pathologist for the district. I'll be speaking about my concerns with international teacher recruitment and retention. First off, happy Filipino American History Month. As I try to celebrate my history, I am again disappointed with the ways our district treats our Filipino educators. History is repeating itself as our district continues to ignore the fact there is a serious problem and a very disorganized hiring process for our international educators. Since last year, the BTU International Committee has begged you all to meet to discuss the unethical, disorganized, and inequitable hiring process of our international educators. At last year's negotiations, several of our veteran international educators presented a huge list of needs to assist with this process for our contract, and you continue to deny our requests. This past October 4th, the BTU International Committee invited all of our new and current international educators. I'd like to share some stories that I heard which provide evidence of the exploitation of these corrupt agencies that you continue to use. Teachers were charged over $2,800 for a one-way ticket by their agencies. I'm not sure if you've ever seen the ticket prices to the Philippines, but this is insane. Second, new educators were stranded at JFK and Dulles airports with no ride to Baltimore. Some had no place to live. Third, there are teachers living with 10 to 12 other teachers in one home, taking Ubers to school, spending 2 hours on a bus to get to work. Fourth, there are teachers on H-1Bs that are paying their own visa fees to the sponsor. This is illegal. Fifth, teachers noted that they're still not getting paid. Imagine not being paid for an entire month as a newcomer to this country. I could keep going on, but I only have 3 minutes. As I've said before, this is egregious how our school district continues to hurt the international educators over and over again. This is not how to retain our most dedicated and committed international educators who want to be here. We demand answers on why this process to hire international teachers continue to fail us. The financial burden that our teachers are experiencing is not fair, as many of them have families who depend on them back home. Please meet with members of the BTU International Committee and the Filipino Educators of Maryland community to discuss the process and verify the proper procedures of hiring and retaining international teachers. Please consider working with agencies that offer visas that lead to U.S. citizenship to improve the retention process. Please read the Code of Ethical International Recruitment and Employment of Teachers from AFT, which some of your very own Filipino teachers contributed. Please do better. Maraming salamat. Bye. Good evening.
Let's make sure that we have someone from staff follow up and that the board is included on that response.
All right, thank you. Our next public comment is from Nathan Farrell.
My name is Nathan Farrell, and I'm speaking on behalf of our international educators employed by BCPSS under J-1 visas. For over a decade, City Schools has recruited educators from the Philippines and likely will continue to do so. Previously, international educators came on H-1B visas. Since 2021, City Schools has relied on J-1 visas to recruit internationally. The J-1 visa is a cultural exchange visa, with little to no oversight from the U.S. or Philippine government. The J1 worker is easily exploited by networks of agencies that traffic in skilled workers to cities like Baltimore. In 21-22, about 30 J1 visa holders from the Philippines were hired. In 22-23, it was about 40. In this school year, over 100 have arrived. They've arrived to a non-existent onboarding process with city schools. Because the board chooses to hire educators through agencies without MOUs or contracts or any governing agreements, the agencies are not beholden to any standard to support the worker. These educators are paying tens of thousands of dollars in arbitrary fees to these agencies that operate with indiscriminate authority to threaten, exploit, and garnish wages of our educators. Right now, many of the J1 visa holders are living 10 to 12 to a home or an apartment since their agencies did not secure housing for them prior to their arrival. They are receiving threats from their agencies that if they complain to human capital, they will be sent home. The agencies tell them if they talk to the union, they'll be terminated. Aside from the illegality of these threats, the same agencies have told the J1 cohorts that they will not be renewed unless they teach at a school with a 3-star rating or higher. There's only 27 city schools with 3 stars or higher, so it's highly competitive and unlikely that they will get to work at one for next school year, especially since our tenure rules prevent them from transferring. These educators are now faced with the decision to leave city schools to ensure they keep their jobs or be sent home in debt. It doesn't have to be this way. The board has rejected the BTU's contract proposals as they relate to our international educators. However, the board can still adopt the Code of Ethical International Recruitment and Employment of Teachers, which was created years ago with contributions by some of our own Filipino educators. This board could adopt the code for the ethical treatment of international educators. It could also meet with members of the BTU International Committee and the Filipino educators of Maryland community to discuss the process and verify the proper procedures of hiring and retaining international teachers. The J1 educators who arrived this year are still in need of winter clothes and household basics. I want to thank the engagement office for dropping off some classroom supplies for the educators at the BTU, but we're still in need of winter coats, bedding, and other resources for these vulnerable employees. Our school district perpetuates systems of harm to our international Filipino teachers over and over again. The BTU and the Filipino community at large demand answers on why this process to hire international teachers continues to fail us all, especially our students. The financial burden that our teachers are experiencing is not fair. The district's choice to ignore the harm that it is complicit in causing is truly newsworthy. We look forward to collaborating with you.
Thank you. And I know that Nathan joined us at the forum as well and submitted some information. Certainly in this setting, we're not going to go into a discussion around personnel, but we do want to make sure we get the information that is followed up to them. Thank you, Dr. Judkins.
We will, thank you. Our next public comment is from Pamela Hart.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Pamela Hart, and I am a resource specialist at Digital Harbor High School and proud member of Local 44. I have been working with city schools for 35 years. I am sharing my concerns on the behalf of the Public Outreach Community Relations Committee, which is composed of both BTU and Local 44 members. We are concerned about the lack of training for resource specialists, hall monitors, wholeness specialists, and those who work directly with students. Past practices was we'd come together during the summer and receive training in self-defense, de-escalation, restraint, crisis response, and mediation. There is no standard job training for hall monitors, behavior support staff, and security personnel. We need consistent, ongoing training throughout the year. Training needs to be conducted in partnership with students, families, and community, especially around emergency procedures like lockdowns and evacuations. We need nonviolent crisis intervention and prevention training. We need training in restorative practices.
We need emergency petition training. As a proud member of Local 44, I have seen over the years how city schools have chosen contractors over hiring full-time city employees. Relying on contractors means that essential staff like hall monitors, security personnel, and student support staff are not held to the same standards. Relying on contractors results in high job turnover in those roles. Also, contractors are not protected in case of workplace injury, so they choose not to engage when they might get injured. This reduces the effectiveness of the role. This impacts student achievement. All of this is made worse as more and more student support staff are being pulled for class coverage. I've been fortunate to work with principals who do their best to achieve safety in schools like we do at Digital. Some of the members of our committee do not share the same experience. The district cannot rely on principals to solve every problem related to school safety. We need a standard set of training and programs for all student support staff. And we need evaluation structure to ensure that all training is working. I hope members of the board will meet with the Public Outreach and Community Relations Committee to discuss this further.
Thank you, Ms. Hart. I want to direct, as we get some follow-up information, I want to direct our Safety and Wholeness Committee to this, just to make sure that it stays on your radar as we get responses back from our staff. Thank you all. Dr. Jenkins, was that the final comment? Thank you. We will now move into committee reports. There were 2 committees that have met. Since our last meeting, we will start with Vice Chair Roberts, who chairs our Operations Committee. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chair McFadden, and thank you everyone for attending tonight's meeting. Last week, the Operations Committee met, and we had a very full agenda. Several areas that I'd like to highlight for this evening. One would be around our staffing and recruitment update. 2 notable areas from that presentation. One, the increase in number of teacher positions that needed to be filled as it relates to Kerwin and the success that the district has had in accomplishing filling those vacancies. And an area that continues to be an area of opportunity for the system is recruiting our CTE teachers, as we have an evolving CTE an evolving CTE program, robust plan to implement new CTE programs that continues to be a challenging area for recruitment within the system. Another area that's worth noting as well is the highlights from our transportation team. We have seen a substantial reduction in the number of unrouted students throughout our system, and that is certainly commendable. I would say Commissioner Reed recommended last year that the team become a bit more intentional about reaching out to other agencies that also are a part of routing within their line of work, and the team has significantly improved the routing efforts throughout our system for our students, ensuring that they're in place on time. Our weapons detection system, which continues to be a very important topic throughout the system. I would encourage, one, if you have not watched the presentation in the Operations Committee meeting from last week, to do so, as this continues to be an area that we will be moving forward with as a system. We're anticipating receiving a procurement item next month to see a rollout for 6 schools in our district. Those schools include Carver Vocational Technical High School, Bergenthaler Vocational Technical High School, Excel Academy, Patterson High School, Dunbar High School, and Frederick Douglass High School. I would also note that a part of the conversation, I know Commissioner Slater-Harrington has mentioned a number of times about the district strategy around replacement of internal and external doors. As a reminder, we are in phase 1 of those considerations. So those capital investments will be applied to external doors. And as we move forward, we will explore what that looks like for the implementation of updating our internal doors. And I think the last area that I want to highlight is a waiver request from our Forest Park school community. They will be hosting an adult prom with no students in attendance. I'm always so excited to see in this spirit of having alumni come back and engage with our students, but I also want to encourage our school communities to also use those times to highlight the district's priority items around literacy, around math, around addressing chronic absenteeism, so that we can continue those very important discussions with our alumni groups so that we can really maximize that community engagement for all stakeholder groups. And that concludes my committee report.
Thank you for your leadership, Vice Chair Roberts. Dr. Henderson, please forgive me for not being in my network's attire tonight, because it seems like the Vice Chair and Commissioner Muhammad have showed up tonight repping their networks.
Old network.
It's the old network, so forgive me. But I'll be in merch at our next meeting. If it's not Booker T, by the way, it won't be. It'll be our network. Fantastic. All right. We next have our policy committee chair, Commissioner Esposito, to give us an overview of what happened in our policy committee. Commissioner?
Yes, thank you. So we met on October 17th, and we started by getting an update of KDA, access to public records, and JRA, maintenance and release of student records. And we reviewed and engaged in a large number of compliance reports for policies regarding incident reporting, data retention, employee evaluations, field trips, students in state supervised care, homeless students, volunteers, and of course, access to public records. So I highly recommend reviewing that recording on the City Schools YouTube channel. And our next meeting will be November 21st from 4 to 5:30. We meet virtually on Microsoft Teams. And our next agenda items will be policy ADF, which reviews wellness, nutrition, and physical activity. And our compliance reports will be IHAMA, which is heroin and opioid addiction education. And if you are concerned about those issues or feel passionate about just engaging with the process, we value diverse perspectives, and we always have space for public comment in the policy committee. So if you have any questions or concerns, we invite you to share them with us. And if you haven't signed up for public comment before, we have spots for 5 people who get 3 minutes to provide testimony. And if you would like to sign up, for public comment, you can do so the Thursday before the meeting at 9 a.m. through that Monday at 5 p.m. Before the scheduled meeting. So you cannot sign up the day of the meeting, but we definitely welcome folks to engage with us.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Esposito. We want to go back to the item that were there any questions from board commissioners though? There's someone who's not muted that is causing a distraction in our meeting. Are there any questions from board colleagues around any of the committee reports? We're now going to go back to item 9.04 that was pulled. Is there staff present to? Thank you. If I'm correct, Commissioner Eblagi wanted to know if the teachers union had been engaged in, is it the feedback process, Commissioner Eblagi, between first and second reader?
Actually, the BTU was engaged and we incorporated their feedback in the first reader. So we sent the entire policy and the regulations to them, and they provided a lot of feedback. And in part of, we'll get in the responses to feedback, I believe the specific item that you reference is called out in here. It's the third item down. section 3A2. And we specifically added that into the policy. So we received that feedback from them and we incorporated it. And this will show you all the responses. All of the unions provided feedback. They were the first groups that we engaged and sent a policy and regulation to. And we incorporated their feedback actually in the first reader. They were a part of that and we recognized this. That specific part of the policy in this feedback document.
Thank you for that. And then also, as for the last point listed on here, I believe they had a similar concern just surrounding the wording and ensuring that we are, sufficiently compliant with what the state says. I was just wondering if we had incorporated their feedback on that final point as well.
I'm not following, I'm sorry.
I believe it is section 3E2.
Yes, it is. And what's your concern with that? So we listed responses and the feedback that we got from them. And so what's on here are things that are now in the policy that recognize their feedback. So yes, we did get this from them and we recognize the feedback and changes to the policy.
Thanks. I appreciate that. Just for the sake of any members watching, maybe BTU members watching, would you be able to just provide a quick overview of just that concern and how we've allayed that? And I simply ask because I received an email just containing that issue, and I just want to make sure that it is not an outstanding one.
So once they provide the feedback, we incorporated some of the feedback to them, and they got we sent back to them the changes we made to the policy and regulation based on feedback that we got from them. And this is it's also been available to them to review. So that is typically how we do in receiving feedback on the policies and regulations.
Did they have any follow-up comment after first reader?
No. As far as we know, we didn't get any follow-up comment after first reader from the BTU. We had incorporated all of their recommendations and what we agreed with in the first reader of the policy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Was that all, Commissioner Bloggy? Are we pulling this for a vote? Okay. Thank you. I will now go back to thank you to the staff. I will now have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Kenyatta Bay.
Who's first? Who's
Kenyatta Bay.
Commissioner Kenyatta Bay made the motion. Commissioner Slater Harrington made a second. All in favor, Vice Chair Roberts?
Yes.
Commissioner Coy?
Yes.
Commissioner Eblagi?
Yes.
Commissioner Esposito?
Yes.
Commissioner Kenyatta Bay?
Yes.
Commissioner Muhammad?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Sally?
Yes.
Commissioner Slater Harrington?
Yes.
And I am in favor. That motion passes unanimously with all members who are present. Thank you all so much. We'll now move into item 10.01, information and discussion around a compliance report on policy KCA, family and community engagement. We have Chief Pike Hubbard joining us. We have former Principal Battaglia. I messed it up. Battaglia. You were hoping that I would mess it up?
He was hoping you would say it,
But
right way.
I thought I did.
You did.
We had a whole discussion.
You did. He was excited that you just did.
Oh, but you were like,
No, I was like, my
Okay, good.
Note that he's wearing his Heart of the Schools blazer. Are you noticing that?
And
Or
he's
his-
wearing his heart.
Or
of the
his
school.
maitre d' jacket. I'm not.
It's red. It's my favorite color, and it's the color for education. And there's one more member of your team that I know you'll introduce, Vanessa Stone. Is that
Yes,
correct?
correct.
Who I don't know as personally. Maybe some other commissioners may, but it's nice to have you present tonight. So welcome to the meeting, Chief Hubbard.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, Commissioners, Board Chair, Vice Chair, Dr. Santelises. We are pleased to be with you tonight to talk about our annual update on our family and community engagement work for the district. As you have mentioned, I am joined by Chris Battaglia, or Battaglia, as most of us say, who is our Director of Community
The correct way to say his name.
That's correct. And also a Heart of the School Awards winner. He's demonstrating the lovely jacket that was presented to him. And our brand new, like literally a month and a half-ish in the job, Vanessa Stone, who is our Director of Family Engagement. She'll give you a little about her background when she joins. But I just want to ask for a little grace for Vanessa because she's reporting on work from the past year that she did not do. But the team has helped her put together the presentation, so she's here with you so she can get to know the board and you can see who she is. Okay, we'll go into the presentation. And the lovely Monique Sims, the SA for our office, is doing the presentation. So obviously this is Board Policy 4, where city schools will effectively engage with all stakeholders, including parents, families, and caregivers of the child's education and community partners who can contribute to the student's success. I don't only read slides, but I wanted to elevate what the board priority is for this evening. Next slide, please, Monique. And just to be clear, here's the structure of our office. As you will see, we have family and community engagement as separate offices. They are not one and the same. We have two directors, two different teams, and the community engagement team, as you can see, is focused on community schools, youth engagement, our partnerships and volunteer work, and our neighborhood outreach. And our family engagement team, their primary focus is to make sure that we connect families to the academic success of their children. But you can see the various things that team does in our office, including our Title I family parent engagement, our multilingual family engagement, et cetera, which you will hear about today. The CEO Ombudsman also sits within my team, handling parent concerns from schools. She does the ultimate appeals situation if there's a concern at a school or a situation that she manages. So we'll just touch on that briefly today. But all of this together is making sure that we can provide a robust connectivity and action-oriented space for families and community partners to engage with city schools. Next slide, please. And I'm going to turn it over to Chris.
Good evening, Commissioners. Dr. Santelises. I am wearing this in honor of National Principals Month. To my colleagues, I wanted to make sure that the Heart of School Awards and the Fund for Educational Excellence was represented well. I'm a former principal. I did not steal the jacket. It was given to me in 2016. Tina wanted me to remind some of you who may not know that I was a principal. Yes, it was given in 2016. Next slide, please. Community engagement is made up of 4 teams. The Partnerships and Volunteers team focuses on aligning partner resources with schools. Community schools team utilizes partnerships and resources to address barriers to education. The youth engagement team focuses on elevating student voices so they're actively involved in their education. And neighborhood relations facilitates the interaction between schools and the neighborhoods by getting out and about to share resources and information with families. Partnerships and Volunteers team consists of Kim Wiggins and Rebecca Henry, and they've continued the work outlined in the School Community Partnership Framework, which includes identifying the current partnerships and building the capacity of partners in other offices within the district. This includes entering all the partnerships and volunteers in the Partners in Education portal, or PI, and providing the necessary training to maximize its use and expedite the onboarding of new partners and volunteers. Close to 1,400 partners and 3,400 volunteers were registered last year. Background checks and orientations have been built into the registration to help improve the process for our volunteers. Now that we have the foundation strengthened, we plan on building on it by improving how we measure effectiveness and providing more training to help establish transformational relationships. The way we plan to improve how we will measure effectiveness is to work with partners such as Baltimore's Promise to create a rubric that focuses on the relationship effectiveness of the partnership and the impact of a partner's work that might have on students and families. As it relates to capacity building, a good example is our partnership with Business Volunteers Maryland, who provided a series of trainings for 9 schools last year and will train 10 schools this year on creating and sustaining effective partnerships. This culminates in a skills connect event where a principal and community school coordinator would present a challenge to a team of business experts, strategize ways to address the challenge, as well as create a possible transformational relationship moving forward. The community school strategy focuses on removing barriers to education for our families and schools. It's led by Sheila Drummond-Cam, Holly Gonzalez, Kenya Smith, Kashawn Golson, Kelly Emmett, and Tanae Thrower. One way to share the work happening in community schools is through outputs. Close to 2,500 partnerships have provided over 315,000 points of service in our schools. An example of a point of service for a student would be when a lead agency leverages grant money for tutoring in a school that 50 students attend after school. That would be an example of 50 points of service. Families responded through the family survey that they were being connected to resources in the community. In fact, 83.2% acknowledged these connections, which is a 9% increase from the original baseline of 74% set just a few years ago. The number of community schools will be expanding next year. This past year, we had 133 total community schools, 91 of which were supported by lead agency partners, and 42 were supported by city schools. This year, every school except Clay Hill was identified by the state as a CPG, concentration of poverty school. All CPG schools are community schools, and Clay Hill has adopted the community school strategy. Therefore, all schools in Baltimore City this year will be community schools. This year, we were focused on joining our lead agency partners and supporting the expanding number of community schools. We are working with the American Institutes for Research on designing a measurement that will help us move from outputs to outcomes evaluation. And we want to continue seeing an increase in families feeling connected to resources, with an 87% being the target goal over the next 2 years. Sabrina Sutton leads our outreach into neighborhoods. One way we do this is with our on-the-go bus that visits schools and neighborhoods during planned events and with pop-up events to distribute resources and information to families. This coming year, we plan to increase our number of touch points and will support the Mayor's Attendance Challenge as we engage families and in their children's education. Our youth engagement strategy is led by Tanae Thrower and Haley T. Their work is focused on elevating student voice so they are actively involved in their own education. Some groups that demonstrate student leadership and involvement include the Youth Ambassadors Program, which is a collaboration of our office with the Be More Me team and the Student Wholeness team. 50 students from 14 schools created impact projects that addressed a specific school need as identified by the students. This year, we're targeting between 13 and 33 schools for our Youth Ambassador Program. Our SGAs doubled in size, and ASCBC organized 3 general assemblies where students created the agenda and programming and led all the breakout sessions. The CEO Youth Leadership Advisory Council was revived in the spring of last year and met with Dr. Santelises a few times to give input and provide feedback on topics important to them. This year, we're planning on quarterly meetings with the CEO and have renamed the group the CEO Student Cabinet. Last year, voter turnout increased tenfold during the ASCBC Executive Board election. This group of students has been a valuable partner with the district when revising policies JJA and policy BBAB and BBB, which we will see in full implementation next week when students across the city elect our student commissioner. I mentioned earlier the impressive growth in the number of SGAs throughout the district. We now have doubled the number of SGAs from 30 to 60, and these students have been active participants in general assemblies, state convenings, and the district policy revision work. 1 year. Every high school has a functioning SGA, and now we're going to strengthen and make them even more highly effective under Haley Tilt, who has really led that work. She's done a wonderful job. This coming year, we will build on the foundation created last year by strengthening the current SGAs and expanding into more schools. Students will not only participate in city and state convenings, they will become more active participants on the school family community councils in their schools. As we engage with our youth, we acknowledge that there are varying degrees of engagement. Whether students are being informed of decisions, sharing in decision-making, or initiating concerns and co-authoring policy revisions, our office strives to honor student voice so that we are speaking with them and not at them when making decisions that affect them. Now I'll turn it over to my colleague, Vanessa Stone.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioners, Dr. Santelises. As Chief Highcover shared earlier, my name is Vanessa Stone, the fresh, newly Director of Family Engagement. While I am not new to the school district, I've actually spent 13 years in schools, immersed in school climate and culture and family engagement. I then spent some time in the school district of Philadelphia and really excited to be back home and to be leading this work in this position. I want to give a shout out to my team, who I hope is listening. I want to thank them certainly for their support and patience as I continue to become acclimated to this position. So thank you. So our family engagement work, the things that drive our work, is our call to action, and that we care for our families and helping them become stronger partners in the education of their child by improving their experiences and creating access points for information through strategic collaboration aligned to our blueprint and engagement linked to student success. Next slide, please. Our dual capacity framework. So this is the theory. This is our theory of action of how we do our work in the district, and we will continue to train our families and staff to work together, and we will also build teacher capacity that will connect family engagement to learning and the development, and to honor the funds of our families' knowledge. Slide, please. So our family engagement and our structures and supports, these are some elements of our work that include our family and community engagement policy implementation, our Title I parent and family engagement stakeholder, our stakeholder engagement, decision-making and advocacy, multilingual family engagement, high school family engagement, and our dual capacity building for our families and staff. Our priority areas, which are family engagement linked to learning, capacity building, decision-making advocacy. Under our family engagement linked to learning, we create strong family and school partnerships linked to learning. Of course, our capacity building provides learning opportunities for staff and families, and the decision-making advocacy, making sure that our families understand the ability to be engaged, certainly at the school level. Next slide, please. So we'd like to highlight some of our family engagement events, not only last year, but this year. The events that we hosted during the 23-22 school year were our Passport to Learning tours at the B&O Railroad, Work Discovery, and they were enjoyed by over 1,000 families. We also targeted our high school families at the Let's Get Hyped too. The Hyped, another acronym, helping youth plan for their education and dreams. And there were a little over 220 families who attended this event. We also supported and participated in the Mayor's Back to School event. These events were not only impactful, but provided families with the opportunities and resources to strengthen their school and family partnerships that support student achievement. And of course, our work will continue this year as we focus on building a toolkit that will support schools, hosting more robust and engaging events, and host smaller activities within the community to increase family participation. Next slide, please. So our multi-family engagement, we have over 12,000 households that identify Spanish as their primary language in the home, and over 9,000 students that identify as English language learners. Our office provides translation and interpretation supports for events and communications. We're going to continue that work, but we are also committed to the work to work cross-collaboratively with all the departments to provide our multilingual families with timely information regarding district-wide programs and experiences that are linked to learning at school and at home. The next slide offers some pictures of our families at various events this past year. the mayor's back to school events, and of course, as Director Pataglia said, our Bus on the Go and our multicultural events as well. So Family University provides an online and in-person opportunities for families and teachers. The specific topic, relationship building, partnering with families and student learning, was one of the most popular offerings that we had for staff during their systemic professional development days, and was recommended for inclusion as a 3-day summer intensive workshop for teachers. Also, sessions are focused on, some of our sessions are focused on the roles of teachers and the importance of relational trust and other topics for forging strong relationships with families. Next slide, please. So again, if we look at our staff and stakeholder capacity building activities for not only this year, but for the following school year, for the next school year, to highlight the quarterly trainings for our family and community engagement liaisons. Our family engagement liaisons are stipend through our office, again, for the quarterly trainings. And I will also highlight in the slides to come a really strong emphasis on our student family community council, but we also provide them with decision-making, advocacy, and stakeholder training. Our parent cafe trainings are also held for community and school coordinators and family engagement liaisons to lead conversations with families, and I'll talk about that in a few slides to come. Our family engagement specialists also hold weekly office hours for our teachers and principals. Our family engagement specialists also work with our ILEDs to provide professional development through the CLN meetings around best practices and family engagement. Our FACE Fellowship, again, another acronym for Family and Community Engagement Fellowship, helps our school communities create school family community partnership plans that will support the academic success of all students. So to this point, to date, we have launched Cohort 3, which we currently have 22 schools participating. In the past, last year, there were 42 schools that had completed the FACE Fellowship with over 220 participants, and then 69 training and coaching sessions that were held last year as well. And of course, that number will increase for the coming school year. Our parent cafes are a space where parents and caregivers can have a conversation on how they can strengthen their families and improve strong, healthy communities. The work is guided by our family engagement liaisons, and over the next few years, we will be providing tools and tips and suggestions as conversation starters. So we're looking to move this work so that schools can host these conversations in cafes at the school level and on their own. So we will offer them that support to do that. So how we're building our district office capacity, we are partnering with Scholastic, and as you can see, they provide our team guidance for improving for progress monitoring for our FCE liaisons. We are providing professional development for principals via CLN meetings. And so, of course, we're going to continue that work into the 23-24 school year by providing quarterly trainings for our liaisons. And we are going to continue to provide professional development for principals as well. We also partner with, we have a partnership with Panorama. And again, I will talk about this partnership also in the slide to come. But they have also worked with our specialists and principals to look at our data to better understand family engagement experiences. And we are going to continue to focus on how to engage families and community stakeholders in the survey data as well. And of course, our continued efforts to provide trainings. And again, we will implement and support training with our principals around data points. So our SFC and community councils are key decision-making bodies in our city schools. We are committed to ensuring that the stakeholders have multiple opportunities to engage in the SFC Council with special intentionality around youth and families that have historically been marginalized from decision-making. Some of the key highlights that we show up here from the 22-23 school year involve the identification of an SFC Council chair at every city school. This is a crucial first step to ensure that every school has an individual dedicated to this work and receiving training on how to effectively lead the initiative. An FSC Council's toolkit has also been created in response to focus groups and focus group data that includes one-pagers that can be used for marketing and recruitment of members. And we have these translated in our top 5 languages. We also have gathered baseline data on the number of meetings annually, and 48% of the schools have held a minimum of 5 meetings throughout the school year. Slide, please. And so POSSIP, which is our text polling, which is, so last year we administered 2 text polls to check the pulse of parents at schools. This year, we are going to be hosting 3 quarterly polls to check the pulse of parents at schools. And we are offering to host polls in the district calendars around budget, district calendar budgeting process, and allowing us the opportunity to host an additional 5 polls, really up to 10 polls, to make sure that we have the pulse checks of the parents. And of course, our Panorama is our survey platform. And some of the key highlights that we had in 2023 during our budget survey, we had over 1,100 responses. At the end of the year, last year, we had over 10,000 responses to our family survey. And our family survey, 82% of our participants responded favorably to having resources that support their child's academic success. And this is a 4% increase from last year. And so our next steps is to administer the end of the year stakeholder survey and receive survey questions, revise survey questions as needed, and work with principals again to effectively utilize their family survey data.
Turn it over to me to close this out. One quick thing on the POSSIP polls, I just want to offer that we get thousands of responses from families with a quick 2-question poll. We will be implementing them at the end of the first quarter this year to ask about the connections of academic work at schools with their families and how families are feeling about their schools. And we're going to utilize that data both as a district-wide to understand how families are feeling, but also individual schools will get coaching and support around what their data is sharing, and where it'll also help us understand where our specialty to sort of go deeper around support for individual schools related to families and their perception of their engagement at the school. So finally, to close us out, this is obviously about the FCE policy, KCA. Our policy implementation is a gradual roll-up, as I told you all a couple of years ago, that each year we would be adding elements of the policy into implementation of our work because we can't do everything all at one time. There are 2 areas we still have work to do on the policy. We are in the progress of finalizing our policy implementation rubric for the district and at each school that articulates performance level descriptions for effective, developing, ineffective, and highly effective practices around family engagement. Rollout this year will be a self-assessment function with the plans of SY 24-25 for the rubric to be used at all schools. So our FACE fellowship schools will pilot our rubric this year and do their self-assessment. And then in 24-25, we expect that all schools will utilize this rubric to assess their own effectiveness and their family engagement practices. We are very excited about these 2-level, district level and school level assessments that we can actually report on next year when we come back and take the progress towards this policy and seeing what schools are saying about their own ability to engage families effectively. And with that, we will close the presentation and take any questions or discussion. Thank you very much.
I did just want to say one thing. That in the same way that Chair McFadden pointed out the significant progress made with our SGAs across the district, I want to point out the incredible work, even though, I know you've said that we have further to go on the school family councils. When you took that goal on, when the team took that goal on, it was mixed at best, is what I would say. And I think the articulation of a clear strategy, that for me is strategy, right? You said our strategy was first to make sure we actually had a functioning SFC in every school, and then that functioning SFC should be meeting regularly, not just once a year or once whenever you need a new principal to come on board. So I did, because I understand, you went over it, but I also very similarly for SFCs wanted to punctuate what a steady focus on a key area has yielded. And I do think we'll be even much closer than the 48% we have now. But I remember when that number would have been 8% at best. So I just want to say kudos, and there's a lot of progress on the goals that you articulated. So
And I appreciate that, Dr. S. We have done a lot of work around SFCs, and not only just getting the chairs appointed, but also training on what it looks like for an effective SFC, and also working with the schools team with the ILEDs and having training with them around what we expect principals to do around the implementation of the SFC. So they're not just on paper. I heard the board loud and clear 2 years ago when you said, how many of them are functioning? I'm like, I can't. We can tell you now, and we're doing great progress. So thank you for acknowledging that.
And I think making sure that folks understand what the SFC is and its value, I think allows a bit more buy-in. So I think you all's work has helped to articulate the value of school family councils in every school. And so thank you for that. I believe that I see several commissioners that would like to chime in. Commissioner Muhammad, did you have your hand raised? Okay, so I see Commissioner Kenyatta Bay. Did you have your hand raised, Commissioner Eblaki? So Commissioner Bay, Commissioner Eblaki, anyone else? And the Vice Chair, Commissioner Esposito. So we'll start with Commissioner Bay.
You're covering a very wide, it's a shotgun. Yeah. And so I'm just wanting to know where the target of your moving forward from here. If you were to narrow that target down, where would you see your target be, aimed?
So if you look at go back to the presentation, Monique, if you don't mind going to the slide that highlights both community engagement and family engagement, we highlight 4 key areas for community engagement and 3 key areas for family engagement of where our focus work is. So in family engagement, it is decision-making and advocacy for our families. It is our family engagement linked to learning, which includes our multilingual engagement. Right. And it is about capacity building for our staff and our families through the dual capacity framework to make sure, historically we would give training to families and say, you should show up this way. Mm-hmm. We don't do that anymore. We have training for staff and for families about how we work together and what that looks like. So those are the priority areas for family engagement. Right. And then Monique, if you can go back to the community engagement slides. Thank you, ma'am. I know there were a lot of them. You see the 3 or 4 key areas, Chris, on that one? There we go. And our priority areas for our community engagement work include our partnerships and volunteers work, our community schools work, which, by the way, I just want to highlight, I don't think Chris hit this hard enough. I'm going to hit it again. Every single school in the city is now a community school. Right. Since 2019, we had 50 schools that were community schools. We now have 155 schools and programs. The schools are 150. There are 5 programs that also have them across the district. The amount of growth we had to endure to get that up and running, to have a coordinator hired at every school and a needs assessment at every school, implementation plan at every school, and PD provided to both principals and coordinators and staff on how to implement that strategy is huge. We are moving in that space. Our priority now is we've been tracking outputs now about getting those up and running and how many touches we're having. We're now getting into the evaluation of the impact. Is attendance better? Is climate better? Sort of move to the impact evaluation. Obviously, youth engagement speaks for itself. It has been tremendous amount of growth on youth engagement. It was also a priority area for us, but really just elevating student voice in multiple ways because different students engage in different ways. I've run our student media team, using them not just to get the district word out, but for the district to listen to students and use the media team as a way for students to elevate their own voice. And having all of our high schools have SGAs, and going down to the middle school level now, and eventually our elementary schools. And then finally, neighborhood relationships, making sure we have strong community connections into neighborhood associations, faith-based institutions, and community agencies across the city.
Yeah, but the reason why I asked that question is, one, you hit on it, impact evaluation. But the second is, we have been, I see a big push involving leadership development within this. But on the other end of that is the community, which is now shifting. And I'm seeing an area in here where you are focusing on the large multi-language learner community, and therefore the difference in engagement with immigrant communities and their engagement as far as this institutions are different from the traditional. And I just wanted to know how you're focusing moving forward on that. And that's the front I'm really curious.
And I will offer Ms. Commissioner Kanier-Bay that if you look at the budget over the past 3 years, and Dr. Ress will attest to this, I have been a staunch advocate in every single budget meeting about investing more resources and dollars into supporting our multilingual families.
Okay.
We have grown tremendously. When I got here, we were pushing out things in English only, and the budget book and a couple of the things would go in Spanish. We are now doing simultaneous translation of all of our messaging, our communications as district-wide. And on Vanessa's team, the school, our staff support the schools in doing the same thing. So where schools have not built the internal capacity to do communication into both multiple languages, our staff handles those situations. Or for a family night or a parent meeting at school, we also offer translation. We've bought the headphones, right? We bring them to schools and you put them on and you have simultaneous translation in our events, but also just strategically thinking about what it looks like, comms and family engagement together. Right now, working on a strategic plan for moving forward for the district on what it looks like across the board. I was here the other day walking into Human Capital's office for a meeting with Chief Nielsen, and there was a person standing at the desk who spoke Spanish, and nobody could help her. And as Dr. Durant would say, you can't unsee what you've seen. I'm like, let me stop. I called my office, staff came downstairs, we got it figured out. But we do have telephonic interpretation that the person just didn't know how to utilize, right? So it's a signal to me that we need to do a really good job this school year of training not only school-based staff, but district office staff to utilize the tools and resources that we have available for them, and then figure out what our strategic plan looks like moving forward as we keep going. I was pushing for simply investment in strategies and tools, and now we're going to move to a more strategic plan operation around how we do translation and interpretation.
Yeah, I will say, Commissioner Bay, just another shout out. Prior to Chief Hike Hubbard arriving in this role, we had very little translation at all. It was paltry in terms of both the amount and the quality. And she really has, and I've said this in cabinet meetings, like Tina really has championed being able to be diligent and far deeper in our engagement of our multilingual families than we had before. So we're not, to a point where we need to be, but it is like night and day. And you can even see it in things like our social media engagement. We never had Spanish language social media, multilingual social media. It wasn't even thought of. And I think part of the shift that should be occurring is the one we're hearing now. So I just wanted to shout out Tina because it's a palpable difference, and she really has championed that at all levels of the organization and its schools.
I was looking forward.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Dr. Santelises. Thank you, Commissioner Bay. I'm going to ask commissioners if we could limit our questions or thoughts to 2, because we have a few, and we also have another presentation. Thank you, Vice Chair. Commissioner Ablagi.
Yes, relieving everyone, I do not have a question, but I just wanted to lift up, in the presentation, it was listed that we had like 150 students, roughly speaking, attending our student general assemblies last year, and our first general assembly of the year this year had well over 200 attendees. So I just wanted to shout out the engagement office and everyone who has been working on getting that up and running because it has clearly shown. So
Thank you, Commissioner. And can I also just shout out the team because we had Claremont there this year. We had elementary schools this year. I was standing outside of that event. Commissioner Esposito, thank you for coming to that event that day. I was in tears watching those babies. I get emotional about it now, watching them walk in. And they got so excited about being there. And the ASCBC team has been amazing. But those little 3rd and 4th and 5th graders, they walked in and they said, okay, you guys, we got to look professional. And they grabbed their little papers and they walked in. And I was like, what grades are you in? They're like 3rd, 4th, and 5th. And I'm like, you're going to be student commissioner one day. You're going to be president of ASCBC one day. And it was just amazing to see the growth. I'm going to tell you something. We don't run those assemblies. ASCBC runs the assemblies and they have issues and they work with the students. And I would encourage all of you to come as observers because we also don't need to get in the way of their work, but to see it in action is really remarkable. And I just want to applaud ASCBC as well and Haley, frankly, for doing the work that they've done to get this up and running the way it has been.
Is that all, Commissioner Bloggy? Thank you for that. Commissioner Esposito?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for mentioning the community associations because I've heard less and less of community associations saying, oh, how do we get in touch with city schools? How do we support? Because they're kind of doing similar work, like trying to find solutions for the community, like doing food drives and things. And so that has definitely improved, like from the network of community associations that I know. And then as far as the language barriers, if I could dream for a second, like I'd love to see like us as a board or staff, if there's opportunities for like language immersion. Cause I mean, we're not like other countries where, people are like multilingual. So maybe the effort is to like, as we're thinking about like training folks and, having opportunities for growth, maybe that's an area where, like learning's not over, like people can learn new languages. So yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner Esposito. Anyone else? Thank you to the team. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for all of what you're doing each and every day in the life of city schools, but certainly in the city of Baltimore. Thank you so much. And welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome to Thames City Schools.
Thank you, George Clooney.
We are now going to move to our next item for information and discussion. It is policy revision to IHBJ, Charter and Operator-Led Schools. This is our first reader and within the first tier of our conversion from rules to policies. So good evening to Ms. Alvarez and Mr. Roberts.
Good evening. I'm Angela Alvarez. I'm the Senior Executive Director for the Office of New Initiatives.
Good evening. My name is Trevor Roberts. I'm a specialist in the Office of New Initiatives.
That was, you kind of just slipped that title change in with us. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Can you give us your title again?
Senior Executive Director for the Office of New Initiatives.
So you see, you just slipped it right in. You do a lot of work for city schools, for all of us. Just want to make sure we all heard that. That's all. Thank you, Senior Executive Director Alvarez.
Thank you. All right, so we're going to share some technical proposed revisions to IHBJ, which is our policy that governs our work with charter and other operator schools. This aligns most closely to Board Priority 6, which is the focus on our number of educational programs and ensuring that all of them, including charter schools, are guaranteeing and offering students a high quality educational experience. So this just lists the policy documents and references. We can keep going. Yep. And so these are technical revisions. So it may seem like a lot of revisions when we look at them, but what we're doing is aligning different documents. So you'll see, so the existing language, so they're truly technical and not a huge change in practice or procedures. And so there's like kind of three key goals. We wanted to ensure that that operator renewal section is aligned to prior board action that just never got captured in the policy itself. We want to clarify the process for revocation because parts of the process currently are contained in the policy and the regulation and then in the operator agreement itself. And so we're trying to make sure they're all saying the same thing and they all contain the same elements. And then we made some minor language changes throughout for clarity in certain places. So tonight is first reader and we'll be back on November 14th for second reader. So the first pertains to that first thing we're seeking to correct. So in 2014, the board approved a permanent change to where graduation is considered in the operator renewal process. The policy had it listed as being part of the climate section. The board felt strongly this is an academic part, and so it should be considered in that process. And so they approved that as a permanent change, and we've followed that in the process since that change was made, but it never got codified in policy. So that's the only thing we're doing is just adding that. So it's in the student achievement section and no longer is listed in the school climate section in the part of the policy that talks about renewal. So next we're going to talk about revocation. And so as I said at the start, the policy, the agreement, and the regulation all contain sections that talk about operator revocation. There are three types of revocation processes that are codified throughout these three documents. We're just seeking to align the documents and make some updates to current practices. And so you'll see that as we go through the presentation. This is where the bulk of the changes are that we're proposing in this revision. The other thing I want to make clear is while we're trying to make sure, we want to make sure there's clear process that's understandable to all about what we would do in the event of a revocation. We've never had to take that step. And so just to talk about two kinds of ways of ending a contract. So in renewal, which we'll be beginning that process on November 14th, ironically enough, the board can consider ending a contract at the end of the term once the contract ends and not renewing it. That's non-renewal. It's a part of a regular process. It's a predictable timeline. It's the considerate contract is up. You're doing a full review and you may decide, yeah, we're just going to let that contract end at the end of the contract term. Revocation is around, oh no, there's a real serious issue here and we can't wait to renewal to end this contract. We need to end the contract abruptly. And so that's the process that we're trying to make sure is super clear between the policy, the contract, and the regulation. And so that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. So first, like I said, there were three different types. We're going to start with the first type, which is the most immediate and for the most sort of egregious and extreme serious cases, which is called immediate suspension and revocation. And so that would mean there was something really, really seriously wrong that really posed having the operator continue to operate that school in the middle of the school year posed an immediate harm. And so that until we went through a process, we need to immediately remove those people from operation of the school. To give an extreme example, I think you think about maybe stuff that's happened with the Catholic Church could be a good example. If there was an extreme concern of abuse, that the staff was being extremely abusive and we were concerned about their presence in the school, this would allow you to take an immediate step to say, actually, you have to leave the school, and it would allow the district staff to operate the school while we went through a process around revocation. So it's meant for extreme limited circumstances where there is, quote, an immediate threat to the health, safety, or welfare of students in the school. These are, and so the image on the side is just showing you, these are languages that exist in the contract, in the reg, and we're trying to make sure they're all aligned. That's the next. The next kind of revocation, it's not as severe as we need to immediately tell the operator to step out of the building, but we want to pursue ending the contract before the end of the contract term. So it's immediate revocation without suspension. And so the grounds for that are the first two grounds actually have to do with the authority of the board. So if for some reason the state invalidated or got rid of our ability to actually authorize charter schools in our district, we would then need to immediately end those contracts because we would have the authority to be in contract with them. Similarly, if our rights were somehow taken away to be able to do that, that would also be a grounds. Then the next two have to do with the operator itself. So if there was a violation of federal or state law that was harmful and significantly harmful and created like an immediate and irreparable impact to the board, our students, or communities, then we would want to pursue that immediate revocation. Or if there was like a significant financial loss where the operator, there was clear their business was going under, there was no way they were going to be able to afford to continue to operate the school, we would pursue that. And then the last one is if there was like a criminal conviction of the operator or the operator or other members of the operating board, that was as such where we needed to actually end our relationship with that group of people. Maybe there was like a fraud or something that created like a serious concern for us as a district in their operation of the school. So again, these are meant for very serious, extreme circumstances. So the process for immediate revocation, for all of these, there's processes that are outlined, I think, more clearly now in our proposed revisions to the policy. For these quicker processes, if you're giving notice, the operator needs to respond pretty quickly within 5 days of getting that notice under the section. They could request a hearing that would have to occur within 15 days, and the board would have to make a decision within 30 days. So it's a very fast, quick process, but it's a legal process and it has to be done. Like the board, for any of these scenarios, the board has to approve these recommendations to revoke and would do so in like a public meeting.
We're going to move on to the third type of revocation, which is called other revocations. Looking at the grounds for other revocations between the policy and the operating agreement, there's a general agreement on what those grounds are for other revocation, but in the operating agreement, it generally goes into more depth in what that looks like. So in the example here, the highlighted text is where the two documents look the same, but again, the bottom text from the operating agreement goes into a little more depth. And on this next slide, we're going to look at the full list of grounds. And again, you can see that there is a lot of overlap as shown by the highlighted text, but the operating agreement on the right does go into more detail. So we are proposing to move that extra detail from the operating agreement where it's existed for 10 years or more, and putting that into the policy language so it is clear in the policy. There are some areas of the grounds that are in the operating agreement but not in the policy. That is shown by the bolded text here. So for those areas that do appear in the operating agreement, but not in the policy, we are now proposing to move those into the policy to make sure that those two documents are fully aligned. So just to be clear, the different grounds that could lead to this other type of revocation include if the operator has not fulfilled a condition that the board has imposed in granting the charter. So if there are specific performance standards that the board has imposed and the operator has not met that, that could lead to revocation. If there's a failure to comply with federal, state, or local laws, if the school's facility can no longer support the educational program, if the continuation of the charter school is not in the best interests of the public or the students of city schools, or if the charter operator fails to grant access to the charter school or to records as requested by the board. And again, so the grounds where it appears in the operating agreement but not in the policy include the criminal conviction of the school operator or a member of the school's operating board. So again, that language will be moved into the policy.
Just to add one difference between like this other revocation and the prior one I was talking about, you hear there's some similarities here. It's a matter of the severity of the issue. So the board could move to act more quickly. And so that's where that revocation without suspension would come into play. When we're talking about these similar items, or the board could say, let's give the operator time. The grounds for other revocation gives the operator actually more time to start to try to cure the concerns. And so there's a process around cure before it comes to the board. And so it's a little bit of a longer process than the other two options that we were talking about before.
We are going to get to the process for other revocation in a minute. We'll go into a little more detail there, but I do want to mention one last ground for the other revocation. And this is based on school performance. So when the policy was originally adopted, the state had school performance goals that were based mostly on state assessments. Over the years, that has evolved, and we currently have the school report card and the comprehensive support and improvement designation for schools that are not meeting standards under the report card. So we are proposing updating the grounds for revocation for not meeting those state performance standards, so that it allows the board to consider revocation for schools that have been designated as CSI and have not made sufficient progress in exiting that designation over the course of years. So as Angela mentioned, there is a process for other revocation outlined in the regulations. It does give schools a timeline for curing issues that arise that have led to the revocation recommendation. And there is a board process involved with that, where the board can hear objections from the school operator. We are extending the timeline on that a bit to allow for a full, robust process for the operator to engage with the board. So that is another change. And finally, the last small change on the process for other revocation has to do with the reassignment of students if a school is revoked. There is language currently in the policy saying that school students will be reassigned based on revised school zones. So we are proposing to remove that word revised, because in charter revocation, there is generally not any change to school zones, since most charters are taking students citywide. So that language is not necessary in this context. So we're proposing to remove it. When there is a recommendation to the board for this revocation under other grounds, there's provisions for a report to be given to the board. Currently, under the policy language, that report is a general report on the school, enrollment trends, education program, etc. But since revocation is based on specific issues that arise and frankly problems that the school is having that they have an opportunity to cure, we are updating the language in this section to make it so that the report focuses on what that issue was that led to the action towards revocation, and an analysis of steps that the operator has taken to cure that issue. We will also provide information to the board on those other areas as necessary. But we felt it was important that this report to the board was really focused on those situations that arose that led to the revocation recommendation and what the operator has done to address that concern. The process following revocation has some descriptions on what happens for reassignment of staff and control of school property. So again, this is outlined in the operating agreement, but we are proposing to move it into the regulations so that it lives in that document. Finally, the operating agreement has always bound school operators to abide by the district code of ethics, but we felt that it was important to call this out as an area where the operating organization has a responsibility to adopt their own code of ethics that are at least as robust as the district's. So we are adding language that that requires operators to develop and adopt their own board of ethics, code of ethics. Finally, we just want to flag that there are two policies coming up for revision soon. JEA, the attendance policy, and IKA, creating and reporting. These have a lot of overlap with the operations of charter schools. So we are flagging that as revisions to these policies are finalized, we will be working to update IHBJ to bring it into alignment with any changes that come to those two policies. And we do want to flag some feedback that we have received as part of our stakeholder outreach. When we brought this policy to the policy committee, the committee requested that we build out a clear communication plan for school communities that are maybe going through revocation. So we have added language in the regulations describing what the communication plan is for the school community and for the public at large. And we also got feedback from school operators asking for clarity on a section in the policy that talks about an annual evaluation that charter schools go through. So we did add some language there to specify what the scope of that evaluation looks like. And just as a reminder, we will be coming back to the board for a second reader on November 14th. Are there any questions from commissioners?
So forgive me if you've already mentioned this, with the immediate revocation, thank you. Do you detail at all, maybe that's not necessary for the policy, but detail the investigation that might happen that would warrant the immediate? Or is it, we saw a news report, it's all bad? You know, I just think
these are evidence-based processes. So we would need affirmative evidence to present first to the CEO and then to the board to be able to move forward with that process. These are all appealable things. And so, and even putting that to the side, it's very serious to pursue something that is very disruptive to a school community.
Right.
And so we need to have real evidence and a real strong, serious concern to even flag, to even move forward, to bring it. So, and so there has to be like real evidence. It can't be based on something superficial. Yeah, so we have to, there are notices that go to schools, accountability notices that are defined. So we didn't talk about it here, but it's defined in the policy and in the contract. And so our first step around the revocation would be like, we would have to give notice to a school of our intent to do a revocation. So that's a defined accountability letter. And so those always have to include what the thing is, what the evidence is, and then what the next steps are. And so it would have that. So that's part of, it's a part of a different section of the policy, but it's part of the policy and it's part of the contract.
That all, commissioners? Commissioner Kenyatta Bay and then Commissioner Esposito.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. It was slide 20, the microphones. Wow. The one before that, please. Sorry. There was what happens with personnel aspect of it. There you go. There was a change in the original. You're going to strike the in accordance with union contract.
Yeah, it's a negotiated agreements. So it's just, this is like a legal, technical, what language we're using. So, so it got changed to be negotiated agreements.
Okay, I was wondering why, why that was taken out, because.
I'm gonna let legal chair.
Yeah, I was concerned about the people that are left. Thank you. Appreciate it.
So, the union agreements were not taken out. We just changed the wording, as Senior Executive Director Alvarez said, to negotiated agreements. And that's because in a recent revision of the collective bargaining law, the preferred statutory term is negotiated agreements, not other terms. So we just are trying to have all of our policies be consistent in our terminology. And actually that was to Commissioner Blagle's, one of the feedback on policy DBN was to use that term. So we're following from BTU. So we're following up on that and being consistent.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, thank you for including the procedures for the communication to the communities. Because yeah, like I think in the past, like that's been the most important thing, because I at least for me, because sometimes the community isn't like not every person impacted is like notified. So like the sooner they get notified, the better. And I think the less like tension there'll be. So yeah, I definitely appreciate you guys including that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really important. But just for clarity, we've never pursued a revocation. We've never done this before, but it's really important to be. So it was good feedback that we got from policy committee, because when we looked at it, it wasn't super clear about what that would look like. So I think that's so you guys will take a look and tell us if it's clear enough and then we'll go from there. But I think that was really good feedback. Really.
Yeah, thank you. And I just want to say thank you so much for integrating the feedback that we did provide in policy, because it does help to provide the clarity that, you know, everybody's looking for. But I think the key here is that revocation is a very serious action for the system to pursue on a very quick turnaround. And so there's those procedural steps and policies that have to be followed through in order to make that recommendation for revocation. But we want to make sure that the policy is clear, it involves communities, you know, that we're notifying folks as soon as possible in these actions, if we ever get there.
Thank you, Commissioner Coy.
Yeah, if you can go to slide 17, and this has some of the changes that are outlined. Could you speak a little bit more to, I noticed a number of things transition from being shall be included to may be included, you know, so some of the items that are, you know, such as student enrollment or education program, student relocation, community impact are in this proposed change are going from a shall be included to a may be included.
Yeah, so the original language was sort of like mirrored after, I think, like a traditional kind of closure process where it had like the 8 factors. And so it didn't really focus on the actual issue that brought it forward to the board. And so we felt it was important, like in a revocation, like if there's a concern, like some of the concerns I outlined where, you know, there's a situation of abuse, right? It's most important that we're focusing on that and not, you know, other factors. And so I think to the extent it's important to know all the different things, we would include those things. But I think the framing has to actually really be focused on. So this is our thinking, so you guys can push us on this, but we think the framing should really be focused on the things that are the problem, and so that we're not treating it as if there's this general issue when there's a really serious kind of challenge. And so really making sure we're naming what those things are, what the evidence is, and what, if any, steps the operators taken to attempt to cure those issues.
Yeah, and I guess my reason for thinking about this question about whether it's a shall or may is it would be hard for me to imagine a scenario where there is something that serious and there's not a plan that also contemplates what then happens the day after that decision is made. And that's, I mean, that's why, like, in most practical cases, it's going to be included, it's going to be a part of that. And that's what I'm interpreting from what you're saying is that, you know, that is in there. And so that's me thinking through, like, is there a scenario where, because I agree with you that the reason for the change is the focus, and the implications of that change have to be considered, you know, to the point about communication. And so that's that. I don't have a like definitive, I think it has to be such, but something certainly I'm sitting with and I'll think about between here and next reader.
Yeah, I think it's like part of it is a question of what's relevant. Like, is 5 years of student enrollment trends, for example, relevant in a revocation? Probably not. But would student relocation be? Absolutely. So I think it depends on, you know, not all of those things will always be relevant. I guess that's the thing that we're trying to.
And so to me, that's the good point, is that, like, polling, like, I do think the student relocation is maybe the one that if I was to say of this list, you know, is always going to be relevant, whereas the others may not be as relevant in making some of those decisions.
Got it. Yep, that makes sense.
Thank you to your team, the Office of New Initiatives. I just want to remind commissioners, as I think I've been doing with all policies that have come before us, to make sure we're going through the regulations in addition to the policy, and then juxtaposing that, you know, the red lines that we have with the previous policies, so that we gain a little bit more historic context to kind of broaden our perspective when we're coming and asking questions about the policies that we're voting on and not necessarily the presentations that are great for information, but those documents become what governs our system. So thank you to the team. Thank you to our policy committee that engaged in this work. And we look forward to second reading. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our upcoming meetings on Tuesday, November 7th at 3:30. The Teaching and Learning Committee will meet virtually. The full board will meet in exec session again on Tuesday, November 14th at 3:30 p.m. And we will follow with a public board meeting at 5:30 p.m. on Tuesday, November 14th. The Operations Committee will meet on Tuesday, November 21st, 10:30 a.m. And the Policy Committee will meet on Tuesday, November 21st at 4:00 p.m. On that same day. Is there anything else for the good of the group? Do we have any birthdays that we missed in October? Any upcoming birthdays in November? Commissioner, Vice Chair.
On tomorrow, Commissioner Slater Harrington, Commissioner Mohammed, myself, Commissioner Sally, and Dr. Junkins, our Board Executive Officer, will be headed to San Diego for the Council of. Will you be headed there too, Dr. Santelises?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, man, it's the City Schools Party in San Diego.
Well, Dr. Santelises is the Secretary Treasurer of the Council. That's a new appointment that the council made. So that's great. And then also with that, Commissioner Slater Harrington serves on the Board of Directors representing city schools on the council. So I'm eager. Thank you for raising it, Vice Chair, to hear more about the learning. The council is very supportive to the work that we do. With the work that we do, they're very involved. So I'm very happy that you all are traveling. We're wishing traveling mercies for each of you so that you can come back and let us know about all the great things that you learn and the perspectives that are broadened as you engage with other big city school systems throughout our country.
And I would just like to say that Dr. Dabrowski and I believe Principal Olia Hardy were asked to also present on the city schools progress in literacy. So when the council did a review of how all council districts did in their state assessments, they noted our progress in literacy. So we will be represented, I think, very strongly by Principal Hardy and Chief Dabrowski.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome for that.
And there is, just be mindful, commissioners who are going, just pay attention to the data dialogues that happen during that conference. Information around literacy and math instruction, because we know it's an issue, right? So what are other school systems doing? And then what are some best practices that we can bring back to inform the work that we're doing here? Thank you for that. And with that, Commissioner Mohammed, you'd be happy to know, because Dr. Durant let me know today that she submitted a proposal request for presentation at the Equity Symposium that NSBA is hosting, and it was approved. So those of us that are going there will be able to celebrate more of the work that City Schools is doing on a national level. So just for your information. Thank you all for your commitment and your service. Is there a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Commissioner Slater Harrington. Is there a second?
Second, Esposito.
Thank you, Commissioner Esposito. All in favor, please indicate by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we are adjourned at 8:21. Thank you, everyone. Have a safe evening.